We're game. Go for it.
Hey everybody. Sorry, if you were on YouTube before, you saw that we had another video that was going on. Kind of crammed them back to back, Denny, so we apologize for eating into a little time. So I'll give you back 8 minutes on the other side of the hour. How about that?
Thank you very much.
Well, we've been working along with this series. This is the third and final one, I believe, that you said that we are going to be doing.
I think we can finish up today.
So the first two, you can go back and see those. We started with a blank 4-inch coaster, and you can find the PDF file to download and get it on there so you can see what it looks like as well. And now coming along with it, I'm going to attach with it is this little deal on there. If we switch over here, you can kind of see that you have drawn out. It's hard to see a little bit there, but you've numbered what tools you used.
Yeah, and I apologized last week, and I want to apologize again for it, that I didn't have a finished piece for you to look at so you could see what you were trying to do. But that's what this is all about.
That's what we're shooting for. So I will have this attached to it as well, so you know exactly what tools that you use, Denny, to do that. So we had our blank coaster, we got our pattern that we have, and we traced it onto tracing paper. Then we wet our leather and put it on our leather. This is one I was working on. And then we swivel knifed it and got our background beveling and then backgrounding done.
Right.
So I think on the pattern as well, there is a second flower pattern that's on there as well. It looks like more of a sunflower.
Yeah, and it has a leaf on it. The other one, this one that we're working on right now, doesn't have a leaf. That's the main big difference. Yeah, you can do that. If you can follow along with what we're doing on this particular flower, you can do the rest of them. You can do basically any Western floral.
And if you guys have any questions about how we've got to this point, ask in the questions and comments. If this is the first time that you're joining, because we're streaming on both YouTube and Facebook this time. So the first time you're joining us on the Facebook one, the other videos are on YouTube. So any tips and tricks that we have with beveling, we're going to go a little bit over that. But first of all, we would like to know where you guys are checking in from, and if this is kind of the first tooling project that you have been taking care of. So tips of swivel knifing.
You want to know some tips of swivel knifing. First off, strop your swivel knife every time you use it. If you do that, you should not have a problem with your knife cutting smooth. If your knife starts to drag and chip on you, you need to strop it. The next thing is watch where you're gonna cut and not where you have cut. That's important. If you try to watch what you have cut, you aren't seeing what you're getting ready to do, and you lose track of yourself. Plus, anything that you've already cut is already cut. So the main thing with a swivel knife is use it a lot. It's the main thing with all of these tools. Use them a lot to practice with each tool. You know, if you're pretty good with one tool and not very good with another tool, practice with the one you're not very good at. That's important.
Yeah. I know that I have issues with it. So making a strop, making sure your swivel knife is sharp, make a strop with leather, and you just, how are you making a strop with it? You didn't bring yours with you. But
no, I didn't bring mine with me, but if you just use the rough side of a piece of vegetable tan leather and just take some jeweler's rouge and scrub it on there, then when you take your knife and strop it, your knife, if you look at your knife, it's beveled at an angle. And get as close to that angle as you can, and just drag your knife across that piece of leather with the jeweler's rouge on it. Turn it over. Go about the same number of strokes on each side. That way you keep your edge right in the center of your knife.
Yeah, will you show me that angle one more time? Show me that angle one more time, how you kind of have it set there.
Yeah.
Hopefully they can kind of see it there. About a 45 or so.
Yeah. You're
the
not
same angle as your blade.
Yes, you're not trying to round that off. You're trying to just smooth it off because what happens is your knife will develop a wire edge when you use it a lot. You shouldn't have to actually sharpen it very often, but you should strop it just about every time you use it. But I just go like that, and then I'll turn the knife over and go like that.
So when I'm cutting with my swivel knife, am I using the whole blade or am I using the tip?
No, you're just using the corner. And we talked about that a little bit last week.
Yeah, we did.
You're just using this one corner of the swivel knife. You know,
put it down there in that granite. Let's see if we can get it with this camera here. There you are.
Yeah, you're just using the very corner of the knife when you cut. A longer, straighter cut, you will straighten the knife out, use a little more of the blade. A real tight corner, you will tip way forward and just get right on the very tip of that knife. But and we talked about this a little bit too, the width of the blade. I like a 3/8 inch blade, and I use that on just about everything because, like I said, you are just using the corner of it. A narrower blade, you aren't gaining anything. But a wide blade, you seem to have a little more stability when you're going around a corner and doing a long sweeping cut. You know, you don't have the chance to get off nearly as bad.
Yeah, and you're just finding something that works well for you. Something that may work better for somebody else. Yeah,
that's exactly right. Whatever I tell you, someone else is probably going to tell you different. Yeah, you know. So don't worry about that. I'm just telling you what works for me very good. So
yeah,
take that with a grain of salt.
Then the beveling we did after we swivel knifed it. What beveling tool did we use?
We used, I believe that's a PB013.
PB013.
And that's,
so it's a hatched.
Yeah, it's a cross-hatched beveler. That's what I use for about everything. You know, there's nothing that's cut in stone. You know, sometimes I will use a smooth beveler, but for the most part, I use a check beveler like that.
Does those check bevelers, do they hide a little bit more?
No, they just give the leather a little bit of texture, and especially if you're using an antique finish on it, they'll catch a little. Those little check marks will catch a little bit of that antique and give you a little more color.
Give you some definition.
Yeah, give you some definition.
So we went through the beveling and...
Yeah, and this is a medium-sized beveler. You will use it probably more than anything else. When you get into some real small, intricate stuff, you'll want a little smaller beveler. The PB12, and I think we've got a PB11, if I'm not mistaken. That's a bit smaller yet. But,
yeah, let's see if we can pick that up on that camera right there. Let's see what happens.
But this is a pretty good beveler for everything we're doing on this pattern. You know, when you get into a little more involved pattern, you'll want a bit smaller beveler.
There we are.
But anyway, after we bevel, you know, then we went into our backgrounder. And it's a matte backgrounder, and it's pretty straightforward. You just background out the areas that aren't part of your vegetation. You know, and... I don't know what to say other than just don't try to do it in straight lines. Just go every which way with that.
Just kind of get everywhere with it.
Yeah.
Don't try to, like, on this one that I went and I had going on here. I don't know if you can kind of see it a little bit there. I have one here. I wouldn't lay it up here and go like that for the next one.
Yeah, and plus the fact...
Am I going to overlay it a little bit?
If you try to... Let me see here.
I know.
If you try to go in a straight line and make everything real symmetrical, you're going to lose. But if you will take and just twist your tool every time you
I see.
You do it. It makes it.
So you're just rotating it in your fingers just a little bit.
Yeah, just rotate it a bit
as you hammer it around. Here's what the end of that looks like, and then the impression that it made is that right there.
Yeah.
And then we just smash that all out.
Okay.
A888.
Yes, that's the one we use for this. Okay. And there are several backgrounders. And here's what we've got so far, if we can get this on camera.
Yeah, let's see where that's at.
Everything's been beveled and backgrounded. Now,
hey, I know that this part right here, that's the flower. That's the where'd it go?
The flower stem.
That's the flower stem. Is here?
Yes, it is.
Wow, I got
very good.
I got that right this week. I've been studying hard.
Yeah, and you know that was one of the problems we had last week when you didn't have anything to go by. You couldn't tell what the flower stem actually was, and that's it right there.
Now it turns out you can really tell what it is, and we'll be doing some decorative stuff on there, so we just need to re-wet our leather back
up. Yeah, I'm gonna spritz this leather again. And for this, you want, when you bevel, you want it to a little bit drier, but we're gonna be using our Pear shader now, which is our I forget.
P217.
P217, yes.
Yeah.
And this is a picture of it, if we can get it on camera.
There it is.
It's a pear shader because it's shaped like a pear.
And it's also crosshatched?
Yes, it's crosshatched also. And that's a matter of personal preference. I use a smooth pear shader on.
And so when I'm wetting my leather for my project, am I wetting the whole project down?
Yes, that's something that I need to impress on people. If you're going to get a piece of leather wet, don't just wet one spot on it. Wet the whole thing. If you just wet one spot, you're going to end up with a watermark on it, like your coffee table when you set a cup of coffee down on it and spill it, and you've got a big ring there on.
I've never left a cup on my coffee table.
Never have. Probably don't have a coffee table.
I do have a coffee table.
Okay, now we're going to start with our pear shader. And the first thing we're going to pear shade is our flower petals.
Okay.
And I'm going to, almost always on a pear shader, you use the fat end of it. You very seldom use the thin end of it. So,
okay.
So that's what we're going to do.
So show me again on this down here. What end of the tool?
The fat end.
We're going to start with the fat end, and we're going to push it.
Yes.
Push it out.
And a pear shader is a tool that you don't use it straight up and down. You always tip it. You always tip it because you aren't trying to make an impression of the whole tool.
We'll back out here just a little bit and make it a little bit easier for you to get in the frame.
Yeah, and this tool, we're going to walk just a little bit.
Okay, so you're coming from the outside into your flower.
Yes, I'm starting out towards the tip of that petal and going in towards the center. And that's another thing to keep in mind. The flow of this flower always goes towards the exact center of it, the exact center of that flower. So everything, I might not start out headed towards the center, but when I end up, the tip of my tool is going to be right towards that center. Everything wants to flow towards the center. So, okay, now I'm going to do all 4 petals on this flower that same way.
Yeah.
And then
I see your leather's moving around a little bit. You want to put a dead weight on there?
I can use that dead weight. And this is a small project. A lot of times it's more trouble than it's worth to use a dead weight, but a lot of times you will thank your lucky stars for it. But anyway, there's what we've got on our flower with our pear shape.
Oh, that's real cool. That looks good. Let me turn the exposure down just a little bit and see if we can darken it up, make it a little easier for people to see. Got a question here, Denny. The pattern on your pear shader, are we if say we use a crosshatch on the beveling, do we need to have a crosshatch on our?
Not necessarily. No, nothing. Like I said, nothing is cut in stone with this. You have artistic license when you're doing any of this stuff.
Yeah.
If you're trying to, say someone brings you a handbag that the flap is torn up on it, and they say, I want you to make a new flap for me, and I want it to match the other one. That's the only time you need to try and match up tools like that, you know?
Yeah.
And chances are you aren't going to be able to, so don't worry about it then.
You're doing the best that you can, really, on there. And the crosshatch, like you said, is when you start to put antique or your dye in it, it's going to catch in those crosshatches a little bit more and add some definition to your piece.
Right. It will highlight the rest of it. Everything around it will highlight a bit because of that darkness that it achieves.
So if we use the smooth pear shader, it might not pick up as much definition when we go to finish it. Right. Okay.
It'll still pick some up. Don't get me wrong. Don't second guess yourself.
Right.
You know, it'll still work.
Right.
But that's why the crosshatch is there, because you get a little better definition. Right. Okay, next. We've done our flower petals. Next we're going to do remember we call these chicken necks, all these little
shoots off the vine,
leaf stems around there, and that's our leaf stem. We don't want to do our flower stem. We don't want to do anything to it right at this point. So, but let's go around. Remember to use our fat end up towards the end of this petal, and just walk it just a bit. See what I got there? Don't overdo this. A lot of people will try to go all the way down their stem, their leaf stem. That's not necessary, and most of the time it looks worse than better.
Would you say that a good way to tell when to stop is if your tool gets too fat, then maybe you should quit? Pear shading.
If you get tired of pear shading, you've gone too far.
No, I mean if you're going down your stem and your pear shading tool doesn't fit on the stem anymore.
Right, and yeah, that's definitely plenty far enough if you get to where you're going to be hanging over the edge. But that's another point that I want to bring up. These tools that we have here are just one set of tools. There are probably 10 or 15 different sizes of pear shaders.
Yeah, we have smaller ones.
We have smaller ones.
And we have
bigger ones. But this is a good average size for a pattern like this.
All right.
But anyway, I'm going to go all the way around all these chicken necks and do what I just did on that one. And I'm going to walk them just a little bit. And there again, we got to pay attention
now I gave you your dead weight and you keep throwing it in the way.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. But that's another thing we need to pay attention to. On our flower, we had a flow when we were going in our petals towards the center of this flower. On these chicken necks, leaf stems, the center always goes away from you, but the center is always down here. You always want to aim towards the center of that stem that's going down. You don't want to, like this one here, you don't want to start out sideways. You want to go follow the flow of that chicken neck as it goes around. I don't know if I'm expressing myself or not.
No, I understand what you're saying.
If you will look at what I've done after this.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to walk it around just a bit.
Now, so, for me, looking at everything kind of has a circular pattern. Yeah, we're using a coaster, but on the other stuff that you do, even with the guitar strap that you had, it all has kind of a circular pattern, and we're using that fat end and thinning out as we go around our circle.
Exactly, and that's something else to keep in mind. Almost all of your Sheridan style carving, which is what we're kind of doing here, is in circles. Each flower will have a circle around it, and all of your features will flow in that circle, and one circle will flow into another in a serpentine fashion, so you'll have this going all the way around.
A serpentine fashion.
Yeah, figure eight. Let's put it that way.
All right.
But it'll go from one to another, and then to another one from that to.
Nice. So we had another question that came in. Doesn't really have anything to do with tooling so much. Can a strap cutter be used to cut corners and curves? If not, what would you recommend? I'm trying to think of what.
No, not really. A strap cutter is meant to cut a straight strap. We do have actual corner chisels that you can cut corners with in several different sizes. I forget exactly what size they are. Anywhere from 1/2 inch up to an inch, I believe, or 1.5 inches, I think. You can use that to make your corners with.
Or if you need to make a corner, I know that I found a coffee can or something like that and used its radius to make the corner to draw it out.
Yeah, you can draw out a corner with anything that's the shape that you desire.
We also, and so if we were making, say if we had a wallet or a rectangle piece and we need to make a corner, we have a Swiss corner card that has different radiuses on it. It's got, I think, 1/4, a 3/4, a 1 inch, and then a 1/2.
Exactly, and I'd forgotten all about those.
Yeah, I did too, and I was one that came up with the idea. So
but it just, what you were saying, to use a coffee can or whatever. The top of a saddle soap can is one of my favorite tools. Because it's round and it's pretty good size for a lot of different things, but just do whatever you've got to do to make what you're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of bad whenever you forget the tool recommendation that you make.
Yeah. Okay, I've gone all the way around the center of this flower with my pear shader. Now I'm getting ready to start on the outside. And if you will remember, I told you always use the fat end of a pear shader.
Yeah.
Well, I lied to you.
Okay, except for this time.
Because out here, see this petal right here is pretty small. If I put that pear shader on there, it's going to completely cover that up. So I'm going to use the small end, and I'm going to tip it way forward.
Would this be where if I had more pear shaders that I could use a smaller one?
Right. If you had more, you could use a smaller one. But see,
We got your maul in the way there. There we go.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
But if you see that, I used the small end of that pear shader and got by pretty good with it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to do the same thing with this next pedal.
Sorry, I took your maul away from you.
Just remember, don't overdo this tool. A little is plenty. Okay, now I'm getting into a bigger one on the outside. I'm going to switch back to the fat end of this tool. And this one is the same way. Just remember, always follow the flow of your vegetation. Now we've got everything has been thumbprinted.
Thumbprint? Pear shade.
I'm sorry, pear shade. Thumbprint, that's when we get into a little bit different deal. That'll be maybe next.
So what's the difference between a thumbprint and a pear shader?
They both are used for about the same purpose. A thumbprint is long and thin, and it is actually meant to use both ends of it.
One. Is that a thumbprint or a style of thumbprint?
Or
the shape of a thumbprint?
That's about like a thumbprint. It's not actually one, but
yeah. What is it? I don't know. It's got like straight lines on it.
yeah.
Sorry. Oh, here we go. There you are. Is that one a thumbprint?
Yes, this is a thumbprint. If we can see it.
There we go. Here, flip that leather over and lay it up on.
Yeah. But see it compared to the pear shader. See, it's long and thin.
Yeah, long and skinny and short and fat.
And a pear shader is curved on the top, whereas this one is fairly flat.
Okay.
You know, but it's meant to use either end. You know, the thumbprint is.
All right.
But for now, just think about your pear shader. We won't talk about that. I'm sorry I called it a thumbprint.
I know.
Because now,
well, just
Tony made me get into a whole different deal.
Sorry, blame it on me.
Okay, we're done with our pear shader now. So let's go to our, let's go to our camouflage tool next.
Let's see.
If you want to see this, this is our camouflage tool.
Looks like a crown.
Yes, it does look
but
like
there's
a
a different tool that's called a crowner.
Yes, and that's used for a completely different purpose. That's to actually bevel around the outside of a flower petal or something like that. But this tool here, this is strictly an accent tool. All the tools we're going to use from here on out are for accents on this.
So even though it is a camouflage tool and you could use it around the edge in different styles of tooling, we're using it as an accent.
As an accent, okay. That's exactly right. And this, the only place we're going to use it are on these 4 flower petals. And we're gonna just make some chatter marks, or stutter marks, I call them. But if you can see, I don't know if you can actually tell what I've done there.
Oh yeah, I can see it pressed down a little bit more.
Yeah, but it just added a little bit of texture to that flower petal. And this is another tool that you don't use straight up and down. You want to tip it, because I'm trying to get the lines, get the impression of the lines on here more than I am the heel of this tool. So I'm just going to do 2 or 3 little chatter marks on each petal. And in traditional Western leather carving, floral carving, you use this camouflage tool a lot more than I'm using it here. But that's another story, so we won't talk about that right now. Okay, we're done with our camouflage. Next tool we're going to use will be our veiner.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You can see it right here.
Let's see. There we go. Yeah, it's laid down there.
Yeah.
So it's got a nice little arc to it as well.
It's got an arc, and there again, these tools come in a different arc, and that will make a big difference. This has a pretty wide, straight type arc. You know, a tool with a smaller radius to it wouldn't work for what we're going to use it for right now. Okay, right. First place we're going to use it is at the junction of each flower petal and the flower center. If you can see right here where I'm placing my tool.
That's good.
Yeah, and this is another tool you don't use straight up and down. You always tip it, and this isn't going to take very much.
Yeah, you can barely hear that little tap that you put on there.
But if you see that, it accentuates that that leaf, because you've covered up a lot of your beveling when you go through it with your
yeah, scoot back that way a little bit. Sorry.
When you cover up you cover up a lot of your beveling when you use your Pear shader and your camouflage.
Yeah, let me see if I can zoom out just a little bit, and then we'll see how hard you're kind of hitting that tool. Let's see if I can see that part. I should be able to see it there.
Okay.
So we can see how hard you're really hitting.
Now I'm placing just the tip of this tool right against that flower center in the same direction as this flower petal is going. And that's all I'm going to do to it.
Yeah.
It's just one little tap. And that'll depend on how wet your leather is, how soft your leather is. Each piece of leather is going to react a little different, and you're going to have to learn to figure that out. But I've done that on all 4 flower petals. There's only 4 spots you need to do that. And what that's done is it accentuated each petal. Now I'm going to go back with this flower center again. Remember our flower center, we tapped it lightly when we first started to cut. And I said we're going to reset it later on, and now is when we're going to reset it, after we've done everything that we're going to do to each flower petal.
So you're kind of done messing that much in the center.
Yeah, I'm done.
So you're trying to fit all your little dots back in that were as best
ideally,
as you can?
yeah. But if you set it lightly, it won't matter, because you'll swell everything you've done back out. So, which I did. So, but you want to set this with a little bit of authority. So now your flower is essentially done, other than your decorative cuts, which will come later. All right.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. The last actual tool that we're going to use will be our mule's foot. And it's just a little deal, looks like a mule's foot. If you've ever seen the mule print in the mud or something.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see right on there, but I guess it looks kind of like a diamond type of shape, but the tool cuts back. The tool cuts back into. Let me see your stylus here. Kind of cuts back in, and there's a groove. That stylus you can see kind of fits in that little groove, so it's like a hoof shape.
Yes.
All right.
Let me. I'll wet this piece of leather here.
Oh, show us a little more. Here, I got one. If you don't want to mess that one up, I got a.
Okay.
Don't go messing with that one. Just got hot stamps from the last video that Kevin was.
Yeah, this will just show you the impression that this tool makes. And this is a tool, you want to tip it forward a bit. You don't have to a whole lot, because the tool itself is actually beveled. It's at an angle. But it's used just to make some accents.
Would that be something like if you say I was doing like wheat stems or something like that in my tooling? Because I use that for wheat stem. It kind of looks like a wheat stem.
Yeah. I'm sorry, we're going to use this tool, but we got to go back to our veiner.
Oh, okay.
Because now we're going to go back to our flower stem. Remember our little lonely flower stem there?
Has no decorative things on it yet.
But now I'm going to take this veiner and I'm going to add an angle.
The deep part's going to be towards the flower, right?
Right, towards the flower itself. But I'm also going to just kind of fan this across this bulb on this flower stem. I'm going to fan it across there, keeping in mind the center of this flower stem is going down away from you, and you want to aim every time towards the center of that stem.
Yeah.
So there, I've got about half of it done. But if you can see,
I got a file of this finished one.
Following this stem down.
I got your finished thing on a file. I'm going to try to pull it up on the computer so they can see it a little bit better.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and finish this out.
All right. So I apologize if it breaks anything. We'll watch him do this little part.
There it's finished, and that just gives you a little bit of definition to that flower stem, to let you know that it is something other than a petal.
That's looking pretty good there, Denny.
Okay, so now we're going to go to our mule's foot. And we're gonna, right at the head of this stem, where it goes into that bulb, that first impression, see that mule's foot? That's where that first one will go. But I'm gonna go just a little space in between each stroke, and I'm gonna go 7 or 8 or 9 strokes here, and each one will be successively lighter, where it will just fade out into nothing. Let's see how that looks.
Looking good.
Okay, we're done with our tools other than our decorative cuts now. So remember to strop your swivel knife when you get to this point, and you want a little bit of moisture in your leather. You don't want to be real dry, because that'll make your knife drag and jump. But I'm going to start with the flower petals, and I'll put a couple of decorative cuts on that and show it to you. And these, you don't have to do these like I do them.
There we go.
But if you can see those cuts, now I'm going to go all the way around and do the other 3.
Oh, we got right on your watch there. Let's see if I can move this camera around just a little bit. You keep on going.
Okay. Decorative cuts are something you almost always start on a curve. You don't ever make a decorative cut just straight. It always wants to have a little bit of a curve to it. But if you see, I've done all 4 flower petals. Now, and I've done those from the outside in. Now I'm going to turn around and do a couple on each petal from the inside out. And I want to start heavy and just fade out into nothing. Just let them go out into a hair. If you see those, what I've just done, kind of gives it a sun ray effect.
Well, I thought I had that file that you had all the tools marked on it on my computer, but I hadn't put it on there yet. So.
Okay. Well, this flower is done now after those decorative cuts. So now I'm going to go back to our chicken necks, and I'm going to make a few cuts on them. Now I always start at the tip end of them and go towards the bottom of the stem. Remember your flow. And remember, don't just make straight cuts. Make a curve with all of them. I'm about done with the inside. Then I'll show you those. Maybe you can see them a little better than the one I've got.
So there's ones that you can kind of make that are normal for the flower. Is there other just details that you think it would look good in there?
Anything looks good. You know. Let me wet this. This one's already wet. I'll make a few different type cuts on this one, and you can see what they might look like.
So I guess the point that I was kind of getting to is you're not really going to make mistakes. This is just the way that you did this one, so we're kind of following along with the pattern that you had going on.
Exactly. I'm going to show you some. Now see, these
cool.
These are different than these.
I like that one.
Yeah.
What if you did that one with that on the top?
Well, let's see what it looks like.
I don't know.
You can do anything, but decorative cuts are something you can overdo.
You could have too many.
Yeah.
This may turn into too many.
Yeah.
Let's see, where'd that go? Which one was? Oh, this one here.
That one right there.
No, this one. This one here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That may be getting a little bit much, but we don't have the camouflage stamp that's in there yet. But
yeah.
How deep are you making those decorative cuts? So we were cutting the other one about halfway through or so.
You want to start about that same way, about halfway through, and then lighten up to nothing.
So are you lighting up pretty quick on those?
Yes, I immediately start to lighten up. As soon as I start that cut, I lighten up.
So we're going to push pretty deep at the start, and then we're going to lift up right as we start to drag.
Exactly.
Okay.
You probably can't see it when I do it.
Especially if the camera's not in focus.
But I've done all the inside pedals. Now I'm doing the outside ones. Okay, this is the last one.
So what makes the leather darker whenever you're mashing it around?
It's called a burnish, and you have to have some moisture in the leather. Yeah, that's another thing. If you're like when you're beveling, if you bevel along and you don't get a dark burnish out of it, you're probably too dry. If you bevel along and it's mushy feeling and you don't get a burnish out of it, you're probably too wet.
So we're using Herman oak here for the import stuff. I know you don't do a lot of tooling with import stuff.
It doesn't tool as well.
Does it still have that burnish to it a little bit?
To a point, it should have.
But not as much.
Yes, if you're tooling with some leather that won't burnish, you're fighting a losing battle.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get any kind of detail looking out of it.
Right.
All right.
Okay. Now that's basically done as far as your decorative cuts. You know there's a few spots in here that don't have much of anything. Some people feel like everything's got to have something on it, so you can go back and make a few cuts there, make a few cuts here, or even go across this way. Let me see here. Yeah.
Come towards me just a little bit. There you are. It's hard to try to look at that TV and move the move the piece around.
For me. I'm dyslexic anyway, and when I'm thinking backwards to begin with and try to move backwards.
Yeah.
But see, there's just a few little marks here and there. You just don't want to say, hey, I made a drastic cut here.
Oh, so those last little cuts where'd your stylus run off to? Oh, I put it across the table there. Yeah. Those last little cuts that you did were like these here?
Yeah, at where there's a lot of lines that come together, you can make a few little cuts like that, just lightly.
I like these right down through the rest of that.
Yeah.
So it was like your pear shader that was here, and there's some cuts in it, and you kind of ran out of space, so we'll just make some cuts. So there's like a separation between the stem, like when the leaf starts to kind of pull away and it rolls away.
And if you will look over here on this other side, there's a spot there with nothing in it, which looks fine.
Yeah.
It looks fine.
This one here?
Yeah, well,
there's a spot here.
Yeah, that's the biggest one there to me. You could put something there if you wanted it. I wouldn't myself, but you can. It's up to you. Like I said, you have artistic license.
Yeah.
But that's it. You're done with your tooling after you get that done.
Yeah, so show us we have a finished picture on there. Hopefully it will click and see it there. Yeah, so you can kind of see what it looks like there. And I think one thing that we could do with this as we move forward a little bit, how close did they look? Come back to this other camera. Let's see how close did we get with. So this is the one that we did beforehand?
Yes, this is the one that we had done.
And then that's what we just did. Move my hands out of the way.
They're fairly close.
They're pretty similar.
I made
Somebody
one
would
more
zoom
cut
the camera
there.
out.
I made one more cut down that flower stem on this one, or on this one.
Oh, I see.
Cut down the center of those mule foot marks.
Let's point that out. So what we're looking at is our mule feet here. And then spin this one where I can see it. Oh no, you can kind of see that there's a line down through there. Now that I've zoomed the camera out so we can see both of them kind of together. They look really close.
Yeah.
I like the way the flower stem kind of comes off there.
Yeah, but if you see now, you see that flower stem, you see how important that part is. That's where everything starts. It's where the flower ends up, and it's where everything else starts around it.
All right, so that's kind of what we have, and like I said, you can't really tell. It's hard to see it. You can see a little bit. There's lines that come off of it, but Denny's drawn lines to each part of it, of the tools that he used, and I'll put that on there as well, that you can download it so you can have that to go along. So I apologize for that. We got a couple other questions here that I left. Let's see. Does what leather work for this?
Goat.
Goat leather. It's a weird looking G.
You need to have a vegetable tan leather. The worst part about goat skin is it's usually fairly thin. When they tan it, they usually level it out, and it ends up pretty thin. Even if it was vegetable tan, it would be very hard. It might be embossed easier than it would be carved.
Do you have decorative cuts at the end of a project? Do you do decorative cuts at the end of the project?
That's generally the very last step.
Last thing that you do. You're kind of... I guess another way, what if you call them stylizing cuts?
That's good. That would be good.
Put your style on the end of it.
Another thing that I have that we don't have out here, I've got a list of these tools and the order that you use them in, and I will give that to Tony, and he can...
How about we put it on this sheet right down that side where I got some blank space?
That would
nice.
be good.
We'll kind of go through the steps of what we had going on. We get where everybody was from. We get what's some cool places? Anybody tell us where they were from?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, Dan started us off.
Dan Baldwin, I assume.
Yeah.
Where's he? Isn't he from Oregon?
Yep.
Medford.
Huh?
Medford, Oregon.
Medford,
We
Oregon.
got Louisiana.
Louisiana.
Poland.
Poland. Nice.
All right.
Tooling across the world with Denny Lowe. Hey, what did we say? Who did this for you?
Ed LeBar.
Ed
made that for
LeBar.
me. He used to be in Florida. I'm not sure if he still is or not.
So on the bottom of it, or the top of it, is a 15. So that's 15 ounces?
I'm not sure. No, I don't
It's the
believe
15th one he made?
Well, it might be 15 ounces.
Or it's the 15th one you've gone through?
I have no idea. But I think he had just started making malls when he sent me that one. But it's a nice one, not.
We also got somebody from West Virginia, and we got Corey from Leakesville, MS.
Nice. Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Leakesville.
All right.
I've been through Mississippi a time or two.
Yeah.
You ever been to Mississippi?
I have been.
You got to go across a river from here to get there.
Oh, you've got to go across several rivers.
But one big one.
Yeah.
Let's see. Would you recommend a taper or a flat blade?
A flat blade. I think you're talking about an angle blade.
Yeah.
I don't like an angle blade at all myself. Some people do. I guess if you do and get along with them, that's fine. But I always use a straight blade. And like I said, I use a 3/8 blade for virtually everything.
Did you make this stylus yourself?
No, that was one that the handle came off of, and I just kind of used a grinder to make some grooves in it so I could hang on to it a little better.
Yeah. That's like you're pointing stuff out with it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of fancy looking. Making our own custom tools here
yes,
with it.
Yes.
Hey, I do know something. Devin asked a question last week, and he was talking about hair blades. And I was talking about the hair blade that we couldn't find one out on the floor, and you showed me one that you had made.
Yes, I made it out of a nail head, and I had they call it a thread cleaning file. It's just a straight file, but it's got some different size grooves on it, and I just used the smallest size groove and filed off grooves.
Yeah, it was what, about a 20 penny nail or so?
Yeah, about a 20. Yeah. And used a grinder to shape it first, and then.
And so and your hair blade goes in a swivel knife?
Yeah, it's about the right size to fit in a swivel knife.
Maybe we can do that and look at some of the other tools that you have, and maybe how to make your own hair blade. I know we have a hair blade that's here.
Yeah,
but
and that's what I always used until I made mine. You know?
Yeah, just shaping new tools or making a tool that breaks, and now we got it's not really a crosshatch, but you're going through a texture.
It's knurled. Hand
knurled by Denny Lowe. Go through that, but I think something else that we can kind of, I think this beginner part of it is done. So usually the next kind of step for this, and somebody's got done with their first kind of tooling, carving, leather carving type of situation, is how do I finish it?
Okay, we'll do that next.
So we can go through that and a little bit of different techniques and using the antique paste and using. I saw a belt that you did the other day, and you were painting different parts, different colors. You want to paint? You want to make this one colorful? We got that.
Sure.
We got that Fenici water stain over there.
Sure.
We can paint it.
I've never used that. I'll be worse than Rusty and Kevin were.
Hey, if you want to see that, video, it's on. Is it on Facebook or did we do it on YouTube? Oh, we did it on YouTube last Friday. But unless anybody has any other questions, we'll let you time to get those in. But Friday, this Friday, we are doing another project together. I'm going to get you in here twice in 1 week.
Yeah. We're working on an old saddle, and we're going to put a new lining in it next week, or at least start one next week. And
so we've got a few.
You're going to clean it and oil it.
The first week we disassembled the saddle that we had. It was a factory production type of saddle. So it's not really one that you would so much want to tear apart and fix back together unless that's what's brought to you and you have taken on this project. Sometimes that's just what happens, and maybe you don't know how to make a saddle. And the easiest part to really figure out how something is built is to take one apart. And so this one's a little bit different than I think that you do your saddles as far as the skirts and the fenders as well. But we took it and we flattened out some of the leather we had because our
skirts and the seat jockey.
The seat jockey was curled up on it, and the skirts were a little out of whack. So we laid it back out and we flattened it back out, and we're going to show you a little bit of that, and then we're going to cut some new stirrup straps, use some Blevins to put those back together, and just show you if maybe you're missing some parts, what you can do to mirror them, and make your parts if you need to make parts for it, and learn how to put a saddle back together from one that has been done for you. And that's an easy way to figure out how something is done. I know that I'm not as scared as I was when I first was looking at that saddle project and doing it. And hopefully that's been the same way for everybody else. It's not so scary to do, but we'll have relining the skirts.
And new stirrup leathers.
I'm going to clean it up, new stirrup leathers, and then we probably won't be able to buck stitch. We may cut some stitching out of the seat.
Yeah, I might do that off camera and just show it to you.
We'll just do some video, and then we'll have a follow-up on that one as well for the third one of putting everything back together. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions. This has been fun. Look in the description of this video a little bit later, and we'll probably share it on Facebook as well, the downloads for this project. You'll get both of these PDF flowers that Denny had. There'll be two of them kind of on the same sheet. He cut them apart. And then the finished one with the tools that you have, the steps that he used. And I'll put that all together for you where you can just easily download it from our site. But thanks, Denny, for doing this project. And we'll probably be moving on to an intermediate tooling project, because I know you have classes on Saturday for people that come into SLC.
Yes, live classes. You from Oregon, and where's the other guy from Poland?
Poland.
You need to make a trip over here and take a class.
Come on down and we'll get you put in a class. If you made it all the way here from Poland, I bet Denny would probably let you in the class for free.
I would. I would make a special class just for you.
Yeah. Poland tooling. But thanks, Denny, and we'll see you again in a couple days.
All right. Thank you, guys.